Ahsoka has gotten off to a solid start and fans can't wait to see what's in store for the rest of the season. Brace yourselves this one, guys, because new leaks have surfaced online potentially revealing the biggest talking points of the show to date, such as the extent of Anakin's involvement.
This is where the fun begins.
But also the true identity of Marok. Now, if true, that means all of the theories that you would have seen online at the moment are wrong.
What are you talking about?
I'll start by going over all these new leaks, how they fit in with some of the older leaks we know about, and where all of this will likely bring us to come the end of the season. Now, to get into a bit of background with these leaks, they did surface prior to episode 3 being released, and here's what they actually said about episode 3, which gives me confidence in thinking these leaks are likely to be true. So the third episode it mentions will be about Ahsoka and Sabine flying on a ship and getting shot down by Morgan Elsbeth. Now, just to remind you, episode 3 did see Ahsoka and Sabine on the ship, and it wasn't just for a part of the episode, it was actually for the entire episode they were on that ship. But of course, what these leaks don't mention is all the bits we get up to whilst on the ship, such as Sabine's training and some new revelations and how the Force works. And the ship did get shot, but it didn't get shot down. That was when they approached the Eye of Sion, that big hyperspace ring that they're building to try and travel to this new galaxy. As soon as they reached Morgan's sector, she opened fire and ended up hitting Ahsoka's ship, and it disabled it for a time. Now, in this episode, I will mention quickly, we also hear Marok's voice more clearly, and we'll get into just what these leaks say about him in a moment. But first, I just need to let you know, these leaks that are out at the moment, they are very vague, but so far, they are correct. So these leaks are definitely missing out on a lot of context to what we can expect to see in each individual episode they take place in, but you'll get the gist, you'll get the bullet points of what to expect. Now, as always, although these leaks were proved right for episode 3, that doesn't mean they're all going to be right. But in my opinion, at this point in time, when the show's already been released partially, there's a very good chance they will be. Now, it goes on to mention that episode 5 is actually the best episode out of the whole show. Now, I was kind of expecting this. I think a lot of fans were as well. We know from previous interviews that episode 5 is Rosario Dawson's favourite episode, so there's likely a lot of cool moments with Ahsoka in that one as well. Maybe we'll get a deeper dive into that character and what's really going on with her at this point in time. Now, previous leaks not relating to the ones we're going through today did actually mention that Ahsoka will once again be in the World Between Worlds, where we're going to see flashbacks of events that have happened in the past, and potentially going to see younger Ahsokas playing the part in live action rather than it being Rosario Dawson. It's during the World Between Worlds that apparently you get the cool scenes of Anakin Skywalker or Mustafar fighting Ahsoka, and of course they had an Obi-Wan corpse made for them scenes as well. So what happens with that, we'll have to wait and see, but essentially these scenes act as a way of showing Ahsoka that no matter what she done differently in the past, her life was always going to end up the same, and Anakin Skywalker was always going to turn into Darth Vader. Now, talking about Anakin Skywalker, they do give us the episodes that he's going to appear in. Will be episodes 5, 7, and 8. So that's 3 episodes with Anakin. But in each of these episodes, it looks like he's going to have a different role to play. Now, episode 5, of course, Rosario Dawson's favourite episode, Anakin is Ahsoka's master, so it's understandable that if they're diving in deep on that character, that he's going to be involved in that one. Now, this is the only other episode, apart from episode 1, that's being directed by Dave Filoni, and apparently the run time for this episode is 49 minutes and 50 seconds with credits, or 46 minutes and 10 seconds without credits. Now, my best guess would be episode 5 is where we're going to see the World Between Worlds scenes. Now, I do think as the whole fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan on Mustafar was originally created by George for Revenge of the Sith, this, of course, will be a reshoot and a new version of that. However, I feel like Filoni wants to make sure that this is really done right to honour what George has done, as it's going back and adding a different take on an existing story. And in my opinion, and maybe this is Dave Filoni's opinion as well, is that he's the best person within Lucasfilm currently to bring this new scene to life. A scene that actually took place during one of the prequel movies. Now, Anakin's involvement in episode 7 is said to be that of a hologram, and in episode 8, he's a Force ghost and he smiles and waves. Now, a hologram I think could be like an old training clip during the Clone Wars. Now, episode 8, we're apparently going to get Anakin as the Force ghost, and I think we also suspected it from that Anakin dialogue in the trailer, and I think that's something that most Star Wars fans want to see as well, although there is no mention of any dialogue between Anakin and Ahsoka, so let me know in the comments how you'd feel if that is actually the case. But with that being said, just because it's not mentioned in the leaks doesn't mean it's not going to happen. We do know from old leaks that apparently the team that brought Darth Vader into Obi-Wan Kenobi to bring that character to life has reassembled for the Ahsoka show, so we could also be getting Anakin Skywalker as Darth Vader in the suit scenes as well, probably in episode 5 of a Monarch's review during the World Between Worlds moment. Now let's move it back a little bit to episode 4. Ahsoka has some kind of near-death experience apparently at the end of episode 4, and that it's ambiguous. That's what the leaks online are saying. Now there are a lot of reports online saying that she could potentially drown or almost drown towards the end of episode 4, something along them lines. Now it does seem, saying that we are going to be getting that Baylan and Ahsoka fight with the star map around them that we see in the Ahsoka trailer in episode 4. So if that is the case, and at the end of the episode Ahsoka almost dies, then putting two together here, could it be that Baylan actually defeats her during that duel and leaves her for dead? I think the similarities are there between the planet they're currently on at the end of episode 3 and Dagobah, which is a swamp planet. Although the trees are a different colour, you've got the mist along the floor as well. There's definitely some water in the surrounding area for Ahsoka to have that near-death experience. Now, moving forward again, just towards the end of the show, and I do apologise for jumping back and forth here, but now apparently in episode 7, and I can see this being a moment where the show really is heating up to that final, we have C-3PO appear in Ahsoka. Now, it goes on to say there's no mention or appearance of Luke Skywalker. C-3PO, in my opinion, is a very interesting addition to the Ahsoka show, and at this point in time, it's likely that C-3PO is going to be hanging around with Leia. Now, I will say there is no word whatsoever on Leia appearing at all in the Ahsoka show, but it kind of makes sense if C-3PO's around that she would also be close by, or maybe she'll be referenced to in some way. Now, with no Luke in Ahsoka, because there is two big reveals there, that means that we're not going to get that scene that I think most fans want at the moment, and that is that initial meeting between Luke and Ahsoka, where they kind of, discuss Anakin and really help each other gain some closure around their master or their father. So it doesn't look like that's going to take place in Ahsoka, but perhaps they're saving that for a potential season 2. I just think it would be amazing to see Luke and Ahsoka meet, just to see their initial reactions to finding each other. Maybe Luke's heard of Ahsoka, maybe Ahsoka's heard murmurs of the young Jedi that took down Palpatine and went up against Darth Vader. Now, as we've established now, according to these leaks, Luke's not going to be appearing in the show, but let's go through another character that's also not going to appear as well, apparently, and that would be Zeb. Apparently he doesn't appear. Now, my thoughts behind this, although we've seen him in The Mandalorian Season 3 briefly, is it could be pretty expensive for Lucasfilm to create that character and constantly use him. So I'm predicting here that if he's not going to be in Ahsoka, then he might have a small involvement in The Mandalorian Season 4, but really they're probably going to save that character when they've got a bigger budget to work with, likely in the Dave Filoni movie. Making him part of Mandalorian Season 4 in a slightly bigger capacity could be a good way to link the characters of Ahsoka to Din Djarin and Carson Teva. There is one more character that a lot of people are wondering if they're going to appear in Ahsoka, and I've got some good and bad news with this one. Now, a lot has been said about Captain Rex apparently being involved in the Ahsoka show. Now, the leaker goes on to say here that he will appear in the show, but it will be as voice only. So I'm not too sure what that means. So perhaps we see him in armor with a helmet on, but you get Tamara Morrison doing the voiceover work, or perhaps it could just be a transmission that Ahsoka receives at some stage from Rex without physically seeing him. So we will kind of get Rex in there, but you're not going to see him in live action apart from maybe the armor. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the biggest mystery of the Ahsoka show today, and that is going to be Marok, or Marok, whatever you want to call him. Now, before we get into what they say about Marok, let's check official databank entry on what it says about this character. Once an Inquisitor hunting Jedi for the Empire, the mysterious Marok now works as a mercenary hired by Morgan Elsbeth to carry out dark deeds. Fully encased in battered battle armor, the warrior still carries a red double-bladed saber with a circular hilt. There's a few interesting bits that I want to zone in on. Works for Morgan Elsbeth, and he's being hired. So it doesn't say that he's coming free or he's volunteered or he's doing it out of loyalty. He's being hired. And he works for Morgan Elsbeth, so he's more attached to her than he is Baylan and Shin. But perhaps Morgan Elsbeth has said, you're working for me, but you're also working for these guys, and you're going to do as they ask on these missions. Now, there are a lot of great theories about who Marok actually is. A lot of theories going around at the moment talk about him being Starkiller, or a version of Starkiller, not exactly the same as the game, or perhaps being the same actor that brought Starkiller to life, but not actually being Starkiller with Sam Witwer. Now, we know he's played various different characters in Star Wars over the years, and perhaps this is going to be his live action version. Some theories out there at the moment are saying it's going to be Ezra Bridger. I don't quite get that one myself, but a lot of people do. And I've even heard some out there mentioning it could be Luke's clone or even a clone of Anakin. Now, my theory for Marok, and I've never said this out in public before, is actually that he's a droid. Now, it is kind of unremarkable, but I could very much see them doing that. Now, I just think he would be a droid with some kind of remote function attached to the lightsaber. It looks like he's force pulling it after that duel with Ahsoka, but it's actually kind of remote controlled and radioed to return to him. And the reason that is kind of my theory here, and I'll be honest with you, is because we've had leaks previously about Baylan going around with a droid and an assassin, and I'm thinking, well, if Shin could be classed as the assassin, then where's the droid? We haven't seen that yet. The only other thing or person he's been associated with is Marok. And there was also another leak as well that mentioned of a new cyborg slash droid that serves Baylan, and it could possibly be a dark trooper. Now, could that actually be Marok, and they've just had a description given to them and they thought maybe that sounds like a dark trooper in dark armor when it's actually an Inquisitor's armor? That was where my head was at, that Marok was probably going to be a droid, and these leaks I will mention came out before episode 1 released. But according to these new leaks, that's also wrong as well. Apparently, and you're not going to get this one, but apparently Marok is made of smoke. So literally like maybe like a black kind of smoke. We've seen this kind of before in Tales of the Jedi with the Inquisitor that Ahsoka fights there. It kind of disappears like it's not actually in existence. Now, this does sound like Night Sister magic, and we know Morgan Elsbeth is a Night Sister, so perhaps Marok was once an Inquisitor that served the Empire, but then he died or he was killed, and he was brought back in some capacity, perhaps just his spirit coming back and donning the armor once again with the help of some magic smoke. We've also had previous leaks that kind of relate to that theory if it is right with Marok. We've had leaks that Morgan Elsbeth or a Night Sister at some point is going to begin to reanimate dead stormtroopers. So that kind of, if it does go that way of Marok being smoked, then it kind of fits in with that older leak as well. So I guess that's a lot for you guys to digest, and it's going to be a bit of a shock if you was really thinking he was going to be Starkiller. Of course, he still could be. These are only leaks online, and I say episode 3 has been true, but we'll have to wait and see whether the others are going to be as well. Let me know what your thoughts are on Marok's identity in the comments. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on today's video. I'll catch you in the next one. May the Force be with you.